everyone. Welcome back to the Erin Coupe podcast. Today's episode is a reframe, a reset, maybe even a little bit of a wake-up call. Because I want to talk about something that so many people struggle with, men and women, and in my experience, women a little bit more than men. But people rarely talk about it honestly. Imposter syndrome. Now, I know that you've heard this phrase, 1,000 times, and maybe you've even labeled yourself with it in the past. I have imposter syndrome, or I fear that I have imposter syndrome. And this might sound a little bit like, I don't feel like I belong in this role. I don't know if I am ready for that promotion. I know that the COO or the CHRO or the CEO role is my next step, but do I really want that? Do I really belong there? And is it really for me? Or is it just my ego that wants it? What if they find out that I'm not as good as they think that I am in that role? But here's my take on it. Something I've discovered through my own experience, through years of coaching executives and leaders and professionals of all ages and demographics and shapes and sizes. Imposter syndrome is not about being an imposter to others. It's not even about being seen as an imposter or thought of as an imposter. It's actually about being an imposter to yourself. And guess what? It is also not a syndrome. Can we just drop that already? Imposter syndrome makes it sound like you have a diagnosis that you now have to deal with, like you need a medication to fix yourself. That is not what this is. It is just your own thoughts getting the best of you. And you and only you can do something about that. So let's unpack this. When people say that they're struggling with imposter syndrome, what they often mean is, I'm afraid I'm not good enough, or I'm afraid that I'm going to be exposed for not being good enough. I mean, at the core, that is a wound that people hold, and they hold it deep within themselves. It's not like they consciously think about not being good enough. And it's not like they consciously think, oh gosh, I'm so scared people are going to find me out, the real me. This is usually a subconscious thing that is happening. A lot of the thoughts in our mind and our subconscious mind are quite negative. Our subconscious holds so much of our emotional experiences and our negative thoughts. And what happens is that when we are in maybe a low point, or we're in a bad mood, or we don't feel great about ourselves, and we haven't slept well, ate well, etc., the subconscious can more easily take over and start to drive your thoughts from there. So if you happen to be at a point in your life where there is a decision to make about a role that you're being asked to take on, or you did just accept that promotion that you got, and all of a sudden you're feeling like you might not be showing up as your best self, and you might be an imposter, this is just a cry for attention to look at what these thoughts are and where they're coming from, and then to reframe them and turn them around into something that actually serves you. So, for example, for years, I really felt in certain roles that I was in, like I had to be a certain type of person. I felt like I needed to act like the people around me. I needed to sound like the people around me. And if I didn't, that I wouldn't be accepted and I wouldn't be thought of as someone who was valuable in the role I was in. And so, I saw this a lot when I was in a brokerage role where I was a producer and I was building my own book of business, but I felt like in order to perhaps be invited into doing deals or transactions with other people in the office, that I needed to behave a little bit more like them and that I needed to sound so much smarter. And if I did, then maybe they'd invite me in to do a deal with them and then maybe I could make more money doing it. But all that really did, that pressure I put on myself, it made me someone who didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. It made me someone who felt like the behaviors that I was exuding weren't really me. And because I felt so inauthentic to myself, I believed that others saw that I was showing up inauthentically. Do you see how that works? If our fear is actually about others seeing us as an imposter, most likely we are being an imposter to ourselves. The external world, the people around you, the situations, the relationships, they're a mirror of what you're actually experiencing on the inside. And most of the time, what we're trying to do as human beings, because we all have the human condition, we're trying to hide that. We're trying to keep that private and not be vulnerable and open about it, and not let people know our fears, and not let people know that we have insecurities, which is kind of a joke because we all do. Everyone does. If it feels like your level of authenticity is maybe shaky, if it feels like you're perhaps showing up as someone different because you feel like maybe you don't belong, or you feel like maybe you don't know what you're doing, I first of all want you to know that that is okay. That most people who step into any new role, new company, start a business, whatever it is that transition or that change that they've moved into, most people don't know. And you don't have to know everything. And you don't even have to feel like you absolutely belong there. What you do have to do is tell yourself that you've earned it and you're going to give it your best shot. That's all you have to do. You can find the answers. You can find the people who know the answers and can help you out. Like, that is not the problem. The problem is in your own mind. What are you telling yourself every single day? And how can you turn that into things that actually support you and help you feel like you belong and help you feel like you can be true to yourself and still show up in the world as someone who can be accepted? How do you show up in the world as someone who is authentic to themselves and true to themselves? That is actually where people will observe you and say, gosh, this person, this man, this woman is so authentic. They're just so genuine. You can just tell that the way that they operate is very true to who they are. They're not trying to be someone that they're not. When you are inauthentic to yourself, you're going to show up in ways that are inauthentic with others, and they will feel that. And therefore, you will feel like that imposter that we initially started talking about today. If you're trying to sound smart, look overly polished, or act a certain way, instead of trusting your own voice and speaking from a deeper place of who you actually are, then that's when it's going to hit you. That's when you're going to feel like that imposter. And that is when you're going to feel like people can actually sense the inauthenticity that you feel within yourself. Just like the story I told you about when I was in a producer type of role, because I was betraying the version of me that I wanted to show up as, the version of me that was more human and more honest and more intuitive, that made me perform as someone that I thought was a version of me who others would accept. That betrayal, betraying myself, made me show up as a version of me that I somehow thought was more acceptable. Why do we think we're not acceptable as who we are? Because a deep wound within us tells us that we're not good enough. So for me, a big point of transition within myself was to turn around not feeling good enough and to tell myself I am good enough. Not only am I good enough, I'm going to do the best with what I know and with what I can. And I'm going to show up each day in the best way that is possible. I'm going to show up each day in a way that feels good to me and feels aligned with my values and who I am. And I'm going to show up each day and build relationships, which is something that I love doing. And if that's all I can do and it leads to building a business, then I've done everything I need to. I don't need to look a certain way. I don't need to sound a certain way. I don't need to be like anybody else. And that is exactly what I want you to take away from this. You need to just be you. You need to be true to yourself and aligned in your own values. And when you do that long enough, you start to feel super connected to yourself. And when you do that long enough, you start to feel super connected to the world around you. If you're struggling with this imposter syndrome, a couple of things to ask yourself. Am I filtering what I say because I'm afraid of how it may land? I'm afraid of what someone might think about me. Do I shrink my ideas because I don't want to be seen as too much or too bossy or too anything for that matter? Do I hold back my voice where I know it actually needs to be heard? Am I overly focused on how I appear to people rather than how I actually feel about myself? And do I avoid putting myself in rooms where I know I have value to add? If you answered yes to any of these, the problem, of course, is not that you're an imposter. The problem is that you're abandoning your authentic self. And when you do that, when you abandon your true self, your energy becomes scattered and disingenuine. And honestly, it becomes more low vibe. It doesn't feel as good for you or for others. You stop trusting your intuition and start second guessing your value. And that's when your inner critic gets really loud and likes to tell you that you're not good enough. So, this is all a cyclical aspect of living in your own mind and not directing your mind. You have the power to direct your mind. You have the power because you have the ability to direct your thoughts. So, what do you do? How do you realign and return to your true self? Coming back to your true self, connecting with your true self. First of all, stop asking, how should I show up? And start asking, how do I show up as who I really am? How do I be more authentic to myself and therefore authentic to others? Start very small. I love incremental steps. We don't need to create some massive overnight shift because that's not even doable. So let's take the pressure off. The next time you're in a meeting and you hear that voice that says, maybe I shouldn't speak up, if you feel like you want to speak up because you've got value to add, share the idea that feels real to you. Even if it's different for the room, even if it may not land with 3 of the people, it might land with 2 others. So share your voice. And remind yourself that belonging doesn't come from blending in, it comes from showing up. Everyone is unique and has something to add. It's only problematic if you speak up just to be combative or to put others down. That's not what this is. You speak up and share your ideas and your thoughts and your opinions because the diversity of thoughts is really important when it comes to getting business done and to doing it well and to innovating and being more creative and all the things. This isn't about being loud. It's about being true. This isn't about proving anything. It's about remembering who you are before the world told you who to be and before you chose to quiet yourself in the hopes of being more accepted. The more you realign to your authentic self and be authentic to you, your values, your truth, your voice, the less that imposter feeling will show up. Because there's no imposter when you're not pretending. My final thoughts on this and what I want you to carry forward with you today is that you were never the imposter in someone else's eyes. No one is looking at you like an imposter. No one is looking at you like you don't belong. You were the imposter in your own skin, and you and only you can shift that. You can stop betraying your voice. You can stop shrinking your presence. You can stop performing as a version of yourself that isn't true to you. And when you do that, when you reconnect with yourself and you show up from that place, that's when confidence becomes more natural. That's when your energy shifts. That's when people feel you and experience you, not just hear you. That's when people can then say, it's so great to hear his or her thoughts. It's so great that they share their opinions. They add such value in our business. They drive our clients forward. They drive our business forward. They bring up things that are really great solutions, not just problems. That's when you'll start to hear those kinds of things more often. So your challenge this week, notice where you're not being fully yourself and choose to reframe in your mind and then realign to your truth. One conversation, one small action or small decision, one moment of truth at a time. You don't need to fix imposter syndrome. You've not been diagnosed with a syndrome. There is no medication to take. There is no button to press to fix it. You just stop abandoning you. You stop being inauthentic to you. So thanks for being here with me today. As always, you know where to find me, erincoupe.com, Authentically EC on Instagram and on YouTube, Erin Coupe. And stay in tune with everything coming up for my book launch this fall by subscribing to my newsletter that I send just a few times a month. Nothing crazy, nothing too marketing, but a lot of great thought leadership and insights to really get you thinking. You can sign up for that at erincoupe.com/subscribe. Remember, the meaning you seek, the answers you yearn for, they often lie within. I encourage you to follow me at erincoupe.com or Authentically EC on Instagram. Subscribe now so you don't miss a step of our journey together. Until next time, manifest great things.